Welcome to Design to Thrive podcast. We have an amazing guest. His name is Hugh from Ventripoint. Welcome, Hugh.
Glad to join you today.
Awesome. So let's talk about Ventripoint. How did this all begin?
Yes, Ventripoint began 20 years ago in Seattle at the University of Washington with a pediatric cardiologist who was concerned about the ability to deliver better care to her patients, particularly young patients who at the time were faced with the need to go into cardiac MRIs. This is a big, noisy machine. There was a number of issues with putting the children into MRIs, and she thought there has to be a better way. So she began looking at the application of AI to cardiac ultrasound, and that was really the genesis of the company.
Okay. Now, what was the aha moment that told you this solution had to exist?
Well, cardiac MRI is regarded as the standard of care or the gold standard for cardiac imaging. However, it's not recommended for patients under the age of 12. For children, it can require sedation and contrast. The parents can't be with them. Cardiac ultrasound is ubiquitous. The installed base of ultrasound machines numbers in the tens of thousands. So I think the aha moment was the recognition that it would be possible to use AI and machine learning and apply that to improve or enhance cardiac ultrasound to the levels of accuracy that MRI would be typically able to deliver.
Now, Hugh, how has the mission for you evolved since the early days?
Yeah, so it's been a 20-year process really of evolving and enhancing the technology. The initial version of this was able to assess the right ventricle of the heart, so one of the four chambers. The form factor was not exactly mature. It was a large machine. The cost of goods was high. Patients had to lie on a wooden bed because of magnetic fields or the concern of interference with magnetic fields. So since then, the technology and the product have been evolved to be able to accurately image all four chambers of the heart. And the form factor has been greatly streamlined to the point now where it's on a medical grade tablet with two small sensors.
So, for someone hearing about Ventripoint for the first time, how do you describe what you do in one sentence?
So we offer an AI enhancement to standard cardiac ultrasound, where we can accurately assess the volumes and ejection fractions for all four chambers of the heart. So these volumetric measurements are very important to cardiologists. They help them assess the status of heart function and the level of efficiency that the heart is working at. So this is a very important tool of the trade for them.
So, Hugh, who's your core patient for the technology? I know you mentioned that there's congenital heart disease involved, and who are them?
We see this as being a tool or an imaging modality that can be used across a range of cardiac indications. The low-hanging fruit or the near-term applications of it that we perceive are, first of all, in congenital heart defects. So there's 300,000 patients in Canada who need monitoring, ongoing monitoring. In the US, there's 1 million children and 1.5 million adults. So the clinical community has done very well at creating new therapeutics and treatments for these patients. So they survive well into adulthood. They need to be monitored throughout life. Globally, there's about 13 million patients. We have identified other areas, so cancer patients. A number of chemotherapies are cardiotoxic. So these patients need to be assessed throughout their treatment regimes to make sure that there are no adverse cardiac effects from the drugs, pulmonary hypertension, heart failure, and now we're beginning to look at heart valve replacements and procedures. So in each case, there's a high need to accurately assess patients, either for diagnostic purposes, in terms of guiding treatment, and finally for monitoring.
And how does your technology actually work, especially compared to traditional heart diagnostics?
Yes, so it is AI. It's actually more precisely speaking, it's machine learning. So we have a proprietary database of MRI images. So this has been carefully curated and annotated. So thousands of heart images, MRI heart images. We have proprietary algorithms, and we use a couple of small sensors, one of which is placed on the patient, the other on the ultrasound probe. So these sensors are used to generate spatial information that are married to the ultrasound image.
And how does your system turn 2D images into accurate 3D visualizations? What's happening behind the scenes?
Yeah, so the way the system works is the standard ultrasound scan is done. We ask for a couple of extra views to be added. The data that's being spatial information that's being generated by our sensors is then married to the ultrasound scan. The system then uses its algorithms and compares what it sees in the ultrasound study against this MRI database, and then reconstructs a 3D volumetric shape.
Okay. And what's your biggest breakthrough that made this level of cardiac imaging possible without MRI?
Well, it was really this initial version of the AI using that proprietary database and the algorithms. And since then, we've continued to enhance the database and also to further enhance and augment the algorithms.
Okay. And Hugh, what does a typical day look like in your role right now?
Typical day starts very early in the morning and continues through to the evening. We have quite a bit on the go in terms of outreach to these various medical specialties. It is cardiology, but different cardiologists will have different focuses in their practices. So, a good part of the day really is involved with outreach to those communities, to distributors, to potential customers or user sites, as well as interacting with our investor base. The company is publicly traded. Shareholder updates and interactions are also a fairly important part of every day for me.
Okay. And what's the most underestimated challenge of running a med tech company?
I think really I think the biggest challenge is in crossing the chasm. So, we've done a very good job with getting a stellar group of early adopters using the product. Now it's working our way into the medical system and getting greater adoption from the clinical community.
Okay. So regulatory hurdles are huge in healthcare. How do you navigate them while still innovating?
Yeah, I think that really is a big part of the game. So we have a clinical regulatory affairs manager. So all of our development is done in a way that is compliant with regulatory requirements. Sort of concurrent to that are quality standards. So we do have an ISO registration. So really it is a case of project management and carefully planning these steps moving forward. Assembling the package that is ultimately submitted to the regulatory authority, be that Health Canada or FDA or the foreign counterparts.
Okay. So what regions or markets are you excited about breaking into next?
Well, there's quite a bit of excitement in a number of areas. So first of all, throughout North America, Europe, and the UK. I think we're quite excited about expanding our reach there. As well, we perceive great opportunities in Asia, in China, as well as South Asia. Big populations, I think they're underserved by MRI. Demand is definitely in great excess of capacity to support those patients. We feel that MRI, or we feel that ultrasound is actually a far better modality in terms of cost, speed, and accessibility.
Okay. And you mentioned you're in 24 different hospitals or 24 different care partners.
Yes.
Any recent partnerships or wins that you're especially proud of?
Well, we have a number that are quite notable in the U.S. That includes Mayo Clinic, Duke University hospitals. Uh, Duke is one of the top 10 cardiac centers in the U.S. Seattle Children's, Phoenix Children's. In Toronto, St. Michael's Hospital for Sick Children or Sick Kids. So Sick Kids is one of the top two pediatric sites globally. Erasmus in Rotterdam, which I believe is the largest pediatric center in Europe. La Charité in Berlin. We have sites in London, Vienna. It's fairly extensive.
Okay, awesome. So, what excites you the most about AI's potential in the cardiovascular space?
Faster, more affordable, and far more accessible cardiac care. At times, we describe ultrasound as a point of care modality. So I think the ability to go see your cardiologist, to have a scan during the same appointment, to actually have them review the scan and adjust your treatment plan and update that by the time you're heading out the door. To me, that's very exciting. It's very efficient versus the process of having to book an appointment, then being referred to a radiology center, waiting for the radiologist to read the scan, reporting that back to the cardiologist, making another appointment with your cardiologist to review that. And we can short circuit that whole process to a single visit.
Awesome. So, what does success look like for Ventripoint in the next 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, so we're now in a position where the technology and the product are essentially de-risked. We have regulatory approvals in all of the key countries for our latest version 4. So we're now pushing the company into its growth phase. So success for us looks at far greater adoption of the modality or the product, the user base expanding to well over 100 sites, and getting the serious interest from a senior partner such as GE or Philips or Siemens.
Okay. And if you can snap your fingers and solve one problem in healthcare, what would it be?
I think access and affordability. Those are really the two key things.
Okay. And where can listeners learn more or get involved with what you're doing?
The best way would be to visit our website, www.ventripoint.com, or we're also on LinkedIn.
Okay. Well, thank you, Hugh, for hopping onto this episode. It was a quick one for sure, but definitely it was exciting to hear what you're doing with Venture Point. So thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.